Guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, and I am here with, I know some people that have watched this channel don't know this name, Jester Styles, Tom Mullenger, one of the busiest and most professional, hard-working magicians in the whole of the UK. Somebody I've been trying to get on the channel since I started the channel, and he's just been so damn busy. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Craig, it is an honor and a privilege. I'm still not quite sure you've got the right person. It is very early in the morning. The energy drinks are on, but when you need me, I'll be there. That's a promise I made you since day one. So
we've had to do it early. We've had to do it early because let's be honest, you're so damn busy over Christmas. Everybody else in the UK is either sitting at home in front of a computer doing virtual shows, or they're sitting at home doing nothing, or they're delivering pizzas. And instead, you're going out gigging every single day. That's why we have to do it now, because it's the only time I can get you.
Well, I'm here. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I've worked hard. I'm very lucky. So thank you for having me.
That's why I wanted to get you on the channel, because this channel is a lot, and I know you watched a lot of the videos we put out, but it's all about helping magicians become better and helping magicians get more work. And your career has been amazing, and I want to talk about it. But you are, I think it's fair to say, at the top of your game. You know, you go out and you perform all of the time. The brand you've created, not just locally but nationally, is, you know, I go to gigs and people will turn around to me and they'll say, "Oh, have you seen Jester Styles? Have you seen Jester Styles?" You know, you're doing so many things right, and I think that everybody in every country that watches this channel needs to hear from you.
I mean, that's a massive honor to hear, and it makes me feel great. I am just doing what I do. A lot of the stuff that I do is stuff that you told me to do, and I know that you tell a lot of people to do stuff, and most people don't listen. And that's one thing I've loved about seeing this channel, Craig, because now people are seeing the version of Craig Petty that I knew, the one that I met. I met you when you were still very much the character on the Wizard product review, which many people still to this day do not realize was a character. But I met a very different Craig. I met a Craig who honestly cared about the people that he had working with him, the people that he met, and people are starting to see that now. And I'm delighted for it. I hopefully don't have to stand there like a bodyguard next time we go to Blackpool. Hopefully people will be nicer to you now. But
fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed.
I remember, and we should probably not talk about this, but we started now. I remember people that would make threats to you personally on your Facebook page. They'd make threats about your family, and they'd be like, "If I see you in Blackpool," and I'd just reply saying, "I'll be in Blackpool. I'll be sat right next to Craig. Come and have a word." Because I don't think people realize how big I actually am. So hopefully we've moved on from that, Craig, and you're now going to have people that...
I haven't had any death threats for a while, Tom, so I'm hoping I can.
Do you remember, and we shouldn't talk about this either, but do you remember when you announced that you were going to give away a digital copy of one of your products?
Yes.
And people were messaging you if they wanted one, and it went crazy. And I think we would drive it. I would have been driving you to a gig, and people were messaging you saying they wanted a copy, and you were like, "Oh, it's going to take me 5 days to get through all these." And then you said to me, "Please do not let me forget, because we know how busy you get and how forgetful you are." And then you realized that you were reading a message from someone saying, "Oh, I'd love a copy of your video, of your product." And when you scrolled up, the message before was them accusing you of being the Satan of magic, calling you very bad language, actually attacking your wife. And I was like, "Why are you doing this?" And then that's when you started to realize that you didn't actually have to help everybody. But yeah. I mean, I've seen it, and I'm glad now that you are here in a new light with a new passion. I think Ryland's helped you. I think having Ryland on,
it's definitely calmed me down a little bit. I will say that
the language is better around him. So
yeah, generally, not always, but generally.
So now I'm over the shock of the amazing intro that you gave me. I am here to speak to you. I wasn't convinced I was the right person, but then you said that because my career had started so different, and I was like, do you know what? If I can give out advice that helps one more person do what I did, then this is a great place to be.
And I want to talk about that, because you see, the thing is, you hear so many people that say, I got into magic when I was 6 years old. I got my Paul Daniels magic set and the bug hit me and I've been a professional ever since. But there's so many people that come into magic later on in life. And it's almost overwhelming. It's kind of like, well, I didn't start doing it when I was in nappies, therefore I can't become a professional magician. And your journey to being a professional was very different to everyone else. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much everyone that I speak to is very
And
different too. So
let's talk about that. When did you get into magic?
I was 28 years old when I learnt my first magic trick. And a lot of magicians will say, oh, I didn't get into magic till I was late. I had a magic set when I was younger. I did some magic and then I discovered girls and skateboarding and then came back to it. I didn't know a single magic trick until I was 28 years old.
Wow.
I was. So when I was 28, was a really exciting time for magic on TV. Foolers had just started. The Magician Show was on. Dynamo was just getting bigger and bigger. So it was an amazing time to fall into magic because it was everywhere. And it was watching Michael Vincent on Foolers that got me into magic. He did a card routine, and once it finished, I rewound it and watched it again because I loved the presentation and the journey that he took the audience on. I just realized that I hadn't breathed for the entire time I was watching the show. I hadn't blinked for that entire trick. And I was like, I'm gonna have to get a book of card tricks for Christmas so I can show my friends down the pub. That's all that I thought I'd do. You know this, but most people may not. I don't hide it. I am extremely dyslexic and dyspraxic. I find reading extremely difficult. For me to decide I was going to get a book on anything was monumental. Luckily, shortly after I got a book, I realized that DVDs were also available. But yeah, I was 28 when I learned my first magic trick, and then it just went upwards from there.
And when did you decide to take that? When did you start doing your first professional gig? Because obviously a lot of people will buy a magic book and that's all they'll do. And they'll never take that leap. But, you know, it felt like very early on, you decided that this was a career that you wanted to do.
I did my first magic gig when I was 29. I've been doing bits.
A year after learning how to do magic, a year after buying a book on card tricks, you were doing a professional gig. That's crazy.
So the first one happened by accident. The first one happened because I've been doing tricks to friends and stuff, and I've been doing them at the ice hockey where I used to go as a fan. And one of the people there said, "Oh, will you come and do my 70th birthday party or something?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." They said, "How much?" I said, "Don't pay me. I'll do it for free." And they're like, "We can't do that." I said, "Tell you what, I'll do it for free, but if you enjoy it, I'll accept a tip." And they gave me a £70 tip. That was the first fee I ever earned, and it went from there. And then eventually, it became a regular thing at the ice hockey. Was my first residency. We'll get to residencies in a minute. Actually, let's go back to when I realized I wanted to be a professional. So I discovered magic at 28. I stopped doing everything else. I was a gamer. I stopped playing I didn't turn the Xbox on. I stopped going out to meet friends. I was just practicing magic. I was getting into the magic world. I emailed every magician that I could find on Google that was local-ish to see if they did magic lessons because I was struggling to learn from a book. So I reached out to people and most people ignored me. Some people came back, I won't give any names, but some people came back saying like, offering lessons at phenomenal amounts of money, Craig. You wouldn't believe how much people thought they could charge for a lesson, especially when I look now at who they actually are and what they possibly could have taught. The first positive reply came from Jamie Raven. Before Britain's Got Talent, Jamie Raven emailed back before he was a household name and said, if you can get to London, I would love to spend a day with you and talk about being a magician. And I was like, I've never been to London before. And I think most people at that point would go, I don't want to go to London to go and spend a day with someone. But I went. Paul Martin and Jamie Raven were business partners at the time. I spent a day with them. It was amazing. They were absolutely putting on a show, though. They were talking about being a professional magician. They were like, counting out big cashes, big stacks of money. As they were showing off in a good way. Now I realised at the time, after the time, that they were actually running an agency, and that money was going out to the performers. They didn't have that much income, but they did show me that you can be a magician just by being a nice person. They showed me that you don't have to know every single slide. I went in as this really eager kid almost at 28, and I was like, oh, I've been learning the pass, and Paul was like, are you enjoying learning the pass? I was like, no, it's hurting my fingers. I can't get it. He was like, don't learn it. You'll never need it. I've never learned the pass. Then after doing that, I got a phone call on my 30th birthday from a friend of both of ours, Keith Pearson, who we tragically lost this year. And Keith phoned me and he said, I don't want to give you lessons. I don't want to sell you lessons. I want to tell you about a magic club. And he told me about Leamington and Warwick Magic Society, where he then met me there the week later. He gave me a deck of cards. He gave me a double backer. He taught me a routine, introduced me to everybody. And I was like, okay, this is cool. There's a community. But the funny thing is, that night was another club visiting Leamington Magic Society. So I got to sit there and watch other magicians perform their set. I was so excited, Craig. I was like, I'm going to see real magicians. I'm going to see real magicians. The first one comes on and I'm like, okay, I still want to be a magician, but I don't want to do that sort of magic. The second one comes on and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm still want to be a magician, but and this went on. And I remember being extremely disheartened when I left. They weren't bad magicians, but they were all doing the same material as the one before them. And it was all very traditional cabaret stand-up magic. It was a lot of change bags and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I know I still want to be a magician, and I'll just keep going back to the club. So the next lecture, and I won't give you the name, the next lecture was on misdirection. And I was like, brilliant, this is going to be the real secrets of being a magician. And the lecture was terrible. The lecture, I could tell by the way the room felt, the energy in the room, that it was not a good lecture. So I was like, okay, I'll give this one more go, because I do really want to be a magician, but maybe the magicians you see on TV are not like, maybe they're the rare crop at the top of the pile. The third lecture that I saw was Gary Jones. So you don't know Gary Jones. You've never heard of Gary Jones. You've never seen a magician perform like Gary Jones. And I just sat there, mouth open, eyes wide. I was absolutely mesmerized by not only the magic, but the way that he was on stage, the way that he was so humble, yet so skillful and so funny. But he was kind of old. And I was like, okay, you're still out there rocking this. So when he said, oh, I've got some DVDs, I was like, I'll buy them all. Eye Candy had just been released with iPhone 10 on it. So I became a student of Gary Jones. I liked his style. I liked everything about him. And then the next lecture was Harry Robson, Uncle Harry. And Harry Robson will openly stand up and say in a lecture room that he is a terrible magician, but he's an amazing entertainer. And I was like, yeah, I like this. And he's the one that started talking about the business side of it. And he was like, if you really want to be a successful professional magician, all you need to do is just be good with people. You need to be in the moment. The tricks come second. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And I was like, so I just need to be good with people. I've spent 10 years training. I've got MBQs in customer service. I can do this. And that's when I really started to think I'm going to be a professional magician. And in the first 28 years of my life, cut out the ones when I was little, so the first 18, I had nothing I wanted to do. I'd failed to be a professional snowboarder. I'd failed to be a professional skateboarder. I'd failed to be a licensed spray paint graffiti artist. I was just plodding along. And for the first time in my life, I was like, I am going to be a professional magician. Even when I was still too nervous to perform magic to my friends, I knew that at one point, if I could get past this initial nerves, I was going to be a professional magician. It was just in my mind. There wasn't another thought in there.
That is fantastic.
And then I nearly quit twice.
What?
So it got to the stage where I was struggling to learn anything. I'd learned the basics, and then I was falling into a trap that I think may push people away from magic. I was watching DVDs on people that had all these amazing sleights and stuff, and I was like, my dyspraxia was not helping, but I will never use that as an excuse because I found a way around it. But at the time, I was like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not going to be very good at this.
It's something magicians struggle with. It's that imposter syndrome.
Oh, 100%. I still get that sitting here. But then I watched a DVD by Mark Bendell called The Unknown. And the first trick on that was so simple, but so powerful. I remember clapping the DVD when I was watching it. I was like, this is amazing. And as that DVD went on, I was like, this is simple moves, but I can make it so much bigger. And that got me back into learning magic, but more creating magic. So I would look at the stuff that I already knew, the stuff, rather than focusing on stuff that I couldn't do. I was like, well, I can do this and I can do that. Can I mix them in to make a routine? So everything that I made was quite original. If people said to me, oh, do you know McDonald's Aces? No, I don't. I don't know any of the named tricks. I've never learned them. I've never earned a magic set. So if you want to fool me, get a Marvin's magic set. That one where the rope's in the thing and it slides up. I haven't got a clue how it works. So I had an almost unique original material because I got inspired by Mark Bendell. So his name needs to be in this interview. The Unknown is an amazing DVD. So do check that out. And then I almost quit again when I started to get the negativity from magic clubs. The magic club that had been so kind to me and everybody that wanted me to do well, when I started to do better than them or to be seen as a business threat or someone that's this young man that's come in and is now surpassing us, perhaps they thought that, the atmosphere changed. And I realized that magic clubs can actually be quite damaging because you go and watch a lecture where someone talks in depth about routines that they've been working for 10 years. And then you think, well, I can't do that. And you try and practice it for a bit. When you get home, you think, oh, it's above my skill level. If you start to think everything's above your skill level, you start to lose faith in who you are. And I always found that I'd go to a lecture, I'd leave really deflated, and then I'd go to a booking the next day and feel like a rock star again. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should just not go to the magic club for a bit and stop trying to learn other people's stuff and work my own. So I nearly quit then as well, but here we are.
Here you are. So, right, this is really, 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 really interesting. So when did you go full time? That must have been around about the same time that you met me.
The 6th of December was when I went. 6th of December 2013 was when I went pro.
Working on the Gadget Show before that, right?
I was working on the Gadget Show. So I was working in a very hostile environment, you have short-term contracts in the TV industry, and everybody wants to get the next role, the next step up. So you get told, you hear things like, well, if you want to work in TV, you will stay here till 8 o'clock tonight, even though you've been there since 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'd get people say to me, like, oh, can you make the talent a cup of tea? I was a runner and a researcher. So I'd gone in as a runner, as something to do that was a little bit different because I was fed up of working recruitment and sales. And I was apparently really good at being a runner. So they promoted me to being a researcher in one of those promotions where you don't actually get any more money, but you work a lot more hours and you suddenly become accountable for a lot more things, but it will look good on your CV. I was like, I think I've been mugged off here. So the more they said to me, if you want to work in TV or you should have done this, at this point, Craig, I was already a professional magician in my head. It was the only thing that I honestly cared about. So my work, I just didn't care. And that's a horrible thing to say, but I had no interest in being there. My heart wasn't there. I just said, I'm not signing that contract when it comes back up, and I'm going to be a professional magician. And they laughed. They laughed, and my partner at the time cried. But here we are again. So the 6th of December, because I'd met you before, and this is the bit that I don't know how this happened. So please enlighten me, because out of nowhere, I reckon probably October or November, I wake up one morning and it says, Mark Lavelle has commented on your Facebook wall or something. So I was like, oh, I know Mark. What's Mark said? And Mark had simply tagged in the name of your old business partner. That's all he'd done. And I was like, hello, how can I help? And then I don't remember what happened between there and me meeting you very nervously in a hotel for a chat. So at some point, I don't know how I got on your radar. I don't know how it then came to me meeting you, but we then met and had a chat, and then I started working for you. So how did I get to that chat? Where did I come on your radar?
I'm not too sure. The only thing I can think of is that we were really pushing to take more people on in Slightly Unusual at that point. And obviously I knew Mark very well because I worked at World Magic Shop. Well, I didn't work at World Magic Shop, but I spent a lot of time at World Magic Shop on the Wizard Product Review, and he was obviously working there at the same time. And we spent a lot of time chatting. So I can only imagine that I said to Mark, hey, you know, I'm looking for people to join Slightly Unusual. I want people that are good, that I can help. And I imagine he would have mentioned you. If he'd tagged me or Russell in, he probably would have mentioned you. And he probably would have said, let me make a connection for you. I imagine that's how it was. Because Mark did introduce me to a few different people. John Meredith, back in the day. He introduced me.
I remember I worked with John. I did one of my first gigs for you with John. That's interesting though, because oh, good old Paul. I've worked with him as well. It's interesting because I would have never shown Mark any magic. So Mark would never have known me for any magic that he'd seen. But I do remember on more than one occasion, Mark would come down to Leamington Magic Society. And Mark did work for World Magic Shop. He was very well known. And I noticed, and the reason I'm saying this is to give some sort of advice from this chat that we've just randomly started, that's gone on for far too long already, I'm sure. Mark would kind of float around and people would be like, that's Mark Lavelle. That's Mark Lavelle from World Magic Shop. And no one would go and like say hello. So I went over, the first time I met Mark, I was eating sweets at the time. I went over, offered him some sweets, and he was like, oh, thanks very much. And we had a chat. And it's that people remember.
Yeah.
It's oh, you went over and you spoke to them and you were nice. And I didn't care who he was. I think maybe because I was already quite old. I think I didn't have that wide-eyedness that a lot of younger magicians have when I've already grown up and got a mortgage at this point. Like I didn't have any ideas of grandeur about anybody. Like we're all people. I didn't want to have any hero worship or anything like that. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go and say hello to him then. I went and said hello, we chatted, watched the lecture, and then that's probably the only reason that I'd have been on the radar. So the advice that I'm trying to get out there is you never know who you're going to meet. So always be best version of yourself in any situation that you're in. But also go and say hello. Like just break the ice, because life's better when you speak to people.
You know, and that's amazing advice. You know, I think that we're scared, especially when we go to conventions. You see like somebody that you've kind of maybe idolized a little bit, and you don't want to go. You want to go up to them, but you can't. I remember the first time I went to Blackpool, my hero was Pat Page, and I was literally just standing, loitering near his booth for about 3 hours, trying to pluck up the courage to go and see him. And he eventually just noticed me over there, shaking like a leaf, and he just shut his stall down for half an hour in the middle of Blackpool when it was a one-day convention. Just shut his stall down, covered it up, saying, I'm going to be back in half an hour. He said, hi, I'm Pat. He took me to the cafe. He bought me a coffee, and he just talked to me for half an hour and showed me magic tricks. Pat Page.
Wow. Okay, that is the extreme example. I was going to say there's a big difference between going up and saying, hi, Craig, love your show, have a great Blackpool, to, hi, Craig, can I show you this? Or my favorite one that I have to walk away when people start doing it would be, hey, Craig, I saw that project that you've been working on for the last 10 years and you released. Can I suggest this change? Like, who are you? Like, no, no, you don't do that. But I guess that's just social skills, isn't it? So but yeah, let's stick with you never know who you're going to meet and always be nice to everyone.
Yeah. Because everybody can help you in one way or another. It's a good idea to be nice to everybody and
yes,
to try and help everyone, because you never know when you need their help.
The only thing I'd put on that is always try and help people, always be nice to everyone, but always be yourself and never break on what you hold true, never break on things that you believe. just be yourself, and things will work out because people are nice. Good things happen to good people. Anyway, back on track. So I meet you for a coffee, you and Russell, in a hotel that was close to you and was nowhere near me. I think I'd finished at the gadget show, then I'd driven an hour to meet you, to drive 2 hours back. We got chatting, and you were like, "Oh, go on then, show us a trick." And I showed you Special K by Mark Bendell from the Unknown DVD. And because it's the Unknown DVD, which is aptly titled, you went, "Oh, is that yours? Did you create that?" And I was like, "I really wish that I did. I didn't. It's Mark Bendell from this DVD." We got chatting about where I wanted to do with magic. You gave me some homework. And were you performing? No, you weren't performing there. You then said that you had a residency, and could I join you on I think it was a Sunday night or something at this residency. And it was you and Russ, and you said, "Come on down, do some magic with us. We'll buy you dinner and we'll have a chat." So we did that, and I was so nervous, but I had a great night. And then I got to sit down with you and Russ and speak to you as friends, but at that point as people. And you explained how the gigs worked and how working for you worked. And there's no point in not mentioning the fact that at that time, your reputation wasn't the best, because what people may not know, there's a big reputation about you not paying people on time. But what people don't know is at that point, you were working every single day, often a close-up and an illusionist show. And then it was just you doing the money. So if you didn't have a day off, then the money didn't get paid to people. So I had loads of people in my ear saying, "Oh, you don't want to work for Craig Petty." And then I was like, have you been asked to work for Craig Petty? And they were like, "No, but I wouldn't work even if I was." And I was like, okay, I can see that there's more to this than people not just don't work for Craig Petty. There's jealousy, there's people that haven't been asked. And then you started to change the business. Well, I think your wife changed the business, and suddenly the money was getting it was so smooth. Do a gig, go and get paid like 2 days later. Like it was never an issue. So I ignored all that. I had lots of people saying that you didn't pay well enough, and it was just a lot of jealousy. And I think that the fact that I was able to understand, maybe because I would like to say old and wise. I wasn't. I was young, and I was so excited, and I just wanted to prove to people that I could do this. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this. That when I started jumping in with you, I was very aware that I was the last one in. So I was the new kid, and there was a layer cake. So the gigs that you had that were the longest drives, I had to do. But I understood that. So when you said, "It's a bit of a drive, mate. It's 2.5 hours to work, 3 hours to drive 2.5 hours home for X amount of money," and you're like, "We know it's not the best fee, but it's a regular thing. It's a big client." I was like, "I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll drive those drives. I'll drive in the rain and the fog to go and find a small venue to go and kill it." And I did. I worked so hard that you would never have to question me, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted to show everybody in your business that, I mean, you mentioned some great names there. You've also got people like Nemid Phoenix that were working for you, who still is. Nemid Phoenix is one of the best magicians, sleight-wise, that I've ever met, because not only can he do the skills, he can entertain with it. I was like, I want to make sure that he knows that I'm good. I wanted to make everyone that you introduced me to, I was like, I want them to, when they feed back to Craig and say, "How's the new kid?" I want them to say, "That guy turned up early. He didn't miss a table, didn't miss a beat, and that was it." That's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to prove to people that I was here for a reason. I wasn't someone that thought it would be a good bit of fun. I was here to make a business out of it. So that happened very early on after we chatted. So that's December and the new year of 2013. I was professional, mostly working for you because I was building my business.
Yeah, you were. And you were fantastic. And I think it was in the February then that you went to Blackpool for the first time, wasn't it?
Well, here's the story then. If you remember, it was, you said, "You need to come to Blackpool with us, and I can introduce you to loads of people." and it was my mum's 60th. So I said, oh, I'm not going to make this one. I will be at the next one, definitely. And then I don't know if you remember, my mum ended up in hospital for that weekend. And you'd phoned me just to see, you'd heard, and you'd phoned to see how I was. And I said, I'm all right. She's stable. She's fine. She's just in hospital. They're keeping her in. Obviously, the party's off, but I'm all right. Thanks for checking in. Have a good Blackpool. If you see anything cool, like grab me any cool tricks that you see. And I hung up the phone. I thought that was nice. It was really nice because I knew that you were busy. I thought it's nice that you just checked in. And I think this is when I realized that I'm not working for a TV company anymore that doesn't care. And I thought it's really nice that they took the time to check in. And then the phone went again, and it was you. And I was like, oh, has he found a cool trick? And you said, I'm just checking. Does that mean that you're not working? And I was like, oh, he's going to have a gig for me. I was like, no, I'm not working. I'm not doing anything. I cancelled the weekend to spend with my mum. I can't see her. And you said, right, how quickly can you get to Blackpool? I was like, I haven't got any money, Craig. I haven't really got the money to. He said, I've booked your room. I've got you a ticket. All you need to do is get here. It's the least we can do to say thanks for all the work you've done. So off I went, and I've driven to Blackpool fast, but I have never driven to Blackpool as fast as I did that night. And I was just there. Was it? I think it might have been the Saturday night. I don't think it was the Friday, but I was there as quick as I could get there, and you were just there with a drink ready with a ticket. Like, I'm really sorry about your mum. Let's take your mind off it. And that was my first Blackpool, courtesy of you.
I actually do remember that, but I didn't remember that at the time. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and then we just got drunk that night, and then the next day you introduced me to people, and I was like, so this is the real aspect of being a magician. This social bubble, and at Blackpool I met friends for life. So the other thing that people, I mean, that sounds like a really nice thing to do. The other thing that you did for me is, if you remember my 30th birthday, I don't remember my 30th birthday, but you made me remember my 30th birthday when I'd been pro for about 3 weeks, and I had a big 30th birthday party at the casino in Coventry at the Rico Arena, and you came down and did your
show for you.
You did a cabaret show. Yeah, I don't remember much of it, but I know that it went down very, very well. So yeah, it's not true what people say about you, mate. Not true what people say about you.
Well, how did you go from where you were then to now? Because now, I mean, you are, as I said at the very beginning of this whole thing, very, very successful. You're one of the only, and I'm not just saying this, you're one of the only magicians that's still working in December right now. You're working every single day. Most magicians are sitting around doing nothing. You're out doing gigs every single day. It's amazing.
Well, this is possibly the important, but we could probably skip everything that we've just talked about. That was probably just you and I catching up in a public forum. The important bit to me was I didn't go self-employed. I didn't risk everything. I had a mortgage at the time to work for someone else. So I loved working for you. I always tell people, in the year that I worked non-stop for you, I got 3-4 years worth of experience in that 1 year by doing the gigs that other people said, oh, it doesn't pay well enough, or oh, it's too long. I earned my stripes. For working for you, I did military bases. And there's 2 types of military bases. You're either working the high end, which is lovely. Everyone's very respectful. It's almost like a high-end corporate, or you're working with the boys, and it's a lot of fun, but you have to be quick-witted. You have to be able to like take a punch almost and keep rolling. And I did both for you. I did small venues, I did house parties, I did big corporate Christmas parties. The first one I ever worked for you that blew my mind, I'd never been to a big Christmas party, and it was a Ramada Hotel Christmas party. And I turn up with a Sharpie and a deck of cards and whatever's in my bag, and I walk in and there's like 100 tables, and I'm like, well, what do I almost turned around and walked out. I was like, what do I do? Just to see what I can do. But I did that for you. I got all the experience that I could take. I never turned down a gig. I never whinged. I just kept on going and kept on going. But I didn't, that wasn't the dream. The dream was always to make Jester Styles into a business for me, into a brand. And then it got to the point where I was starting to get busier on my own from stuff that I'd been doing. So I'd do a booking and get another booking, do a house party, get a wedding. And it got to the point where I was turning down more work from you than I could take, which used to make you laugh because you'd just phone me up and go, is there any days that you're available next month? And I'd be like, you can have this one, you can have this one. But obviously I always prioritized my gigs. And what was amazing was you always prioritized my business. And I remember being on the motorway with you, driving to a booking with you. We had 2 bookings in one day and they were miles away, and we were driving. And anyone that doesn't know, Craig doesn't drive, and Craig likes to sleep in a car. And if Craig's not asleep in a car, he does this brilliant thing, because not only does Craig not drive, he doesn't understand what driving actually involves. Now, I drive high performance cars, and I drive them in a way that high performance cars like to be driven, which is fine, and it's safe as long as you're aware what you're doing in your surroundings. When you've got Craig Petty with his iPad or his iPhone or his iWatch or his whatever in his hand, and he's watching a magic trailer, if you've ever seen a Craig Petty rant on screen, imagine that in your ear while you're trying to drive down a motorway in the early hours of the morning. He's grabbing you, going, look at this, is this acceptable? Would you release this? Is that even convincing? That is an experience that I hope that most of you never need to survive. But while he wasn't doing that, Craig, you would be giving me advice on how to grow my business, knowing full well that that would mean that I'd be leaving yours. And as a friend, and also maybe a mentor is the right word, that's amazing to take in. Luckily, I was mature enough to understand that's what you were doing as well. You weren't just being nice and telling me what I wanted to hear. You were giving me solid advice, knowing that I would end up having to not work for you anymore. And I listened, and it wasn't just you. I was very lucky with the people that I got speaking to. Owen Strickland, D. Christopher, Elliot Bibby, Lee Thompson have absolutely shaped my career. And I was very lucky to have them to talk to the whole time. And it got to the point where my business was big enough where I was able to message you and say, thank you for absolutely everything that you've done. I will always be at the end of the phone, but I need to come off your books because you book up early, and then it just stopped working. So due to your mentorship and the hard work that I was putting in, because I'd learned to do it the right way the first time from working for you, I was just set ready to go. The business that I created, I didn't want to be a magician, which sounds daft because I did want to be a magician, but I wanted the branding, I wanted the character, I wanted it to be a product. I wanted it to be more than just a guy that does tricks. I didn't want people to book a magician. I wanted people to feel like they could book an appearance from Jester Styles. So they weren't hiring a magician, they were booking an appearance from Jester Styles. D. Christopher said to me very early on, if you act like a rock star, they will treat you like a rock star. And I took that to heart. And I don't mean that I turned up and acted like a knob and was like necking drinks at the bar. I mean the opposite. I turned up early. I was extremely polite. I didn't drink it, and that's a bugbear for me. I didn't drink at a gig. I always exceeded expectations, and I was just treated from the minute that I got into the car on the way to the gig, they were going to get the best of me, no matter what was going on with my mum, with my dog's health. I mean, I've worked, as we all have, I've worked through some horrible dark days, but no one ever knew that. So I shaped myself working for you. I earned my stripes, and then I put them to use.
You really did. You really, really did. And on that subject, what advice would you give people about creating a brand? Because you have done, and especially locally. I think you focus locally in the Warwickshire area. You know, I go to weddings, I get booked to go to weddings, and I'll turn up with a van full of illusions, and I'll walk in, and it's a bit frustrating. I'll walk in and people will go, oh, you heard of Jester Styles? Have you heard of Jester Styles? And then I'll go to another wedding the next week. Have you heard of Jester Styles? And it's like, my God, I can't go anywhere in Warwick without actually having people go, have you heard of Jester Styles? And then I'll go to a corporate gig and I'll be doing magic. Oh, you're really good, but have you seen Jester Styles? Yes, I know I'm fucking better than him. Fuck off.
Oh, we're swearing, are we? Oh, we're swearing. Wow, okay. Well, here's some fucking advice for you then.
No, that's my internal monologue, mate. But
well, you've said it now. You've said it now.
That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
The first bit of advice then is you give yourself a fucking good name.
Yeah.
One that people remember. But here's the thing, right? I was skint when I first got into magic. I was working in TV, which was not the best paid. I already had. I'd never talk about figures apart from to my accountant. That's something that I learned from you, Craig. Never talk about money because somebody always earns more. But I had a mortgage that was nearly $1,000 a month. My house is beautiful, but I was broke. So when I started trying to get into weddings and stuff, wedding fairs is the way to go, but only if you can afford it. Wedding fairs are £100, £200. Mm-hmm. Now, I started doing weddings about the same time as Owen Strickland started doing weddings. And
done an interview on this channel, and he spends about an hour talking about wedding fairs.
So here's the thing, right? Owen Strickland, he's not going to mind me saying this. Owen Strickland, fantastic, phenomenal phenomenal performer. Actually, he's a slightly better human being than he is performer, and that's probably the nicest thing I can say about him. I love the guy, but he had a full-time job with a good salary. He was working extremely high in the police while also being a wedding magician. So he had money. So when a wedding fair came up, he was like, yeah, I'll do that one, I'll do that one, I'll do that one. I was skint. So I had to maybe pick one wedding fair a month and go to that. And Owen would be like, oh, I've done 4 wedding fairs this month. I'm like, brilliant, I've done 1, I hope it's good. So I had to grassroots it. I had to get out there and put my face in people's faces. I had to find other ways to do it. And that was anywhere where there's people, you can show up. And I was originally a very street magician branded performer, heavily inspired by, I guess, Dynamo and David Blaine, and the fact that I used to be a skateboarder. I used to hang out on the streets, as bad as that sounds, but I was very much an urban kid. I used to like street art, I like street magic, I like street performances, I like spray paint, and that came across in my branding and who I was, my persona. It was me turned up to 11. So I had to get out. So I found ways to get into back doors to venues. If there was a street food event, I would be like emailing them saying, oh, do you need a magician to come down? And if they said yes and they'd pay me 150 quid, I'd go down. If they said no, I'd go down. Just wouldn't do it for being paid. I've offered them the services. My argument there is if you pay me, they could have me for however long the booking was. If you go down on your own, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
But you end up doing, you put yourself in these situations. So the Dough and Brew is the best pizza place. Like literally, it's won awards for the best pizza in the UK. It's in Warwick. They had a little street van. So pizza's lovely, but it takes a while to cook. So someone placed their order, and I was already smart enough to know that if you mess with people's ordering systems or you delay them, you're a hindrance and you're a botherer. But if someone's ordered their pizza and they're waiting for it to be delivered, and you're like, hey, do you want to see a card trick? It's a win-win. So the guy on the van's like, mate, do you want a free pizza? You've been really helping us today. So yeah, you get free pizza. I'll always work for free pizza, fact. But then they have the conversation like, oh, do you know we've actually got a restaurant? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Are you busy? How can I ask? What's your wait time? Because pizzas take a long to cook, especially in an oven. They're like, oh, yeah, it's 20 minutes. I'm like, well, I could do magic at a table for 5 minutes to break that wait up. And then you start selling what you can actually do. Like if there's a delay, you can get in there or you can help people find their seats. And suddenly I had little bookings here and there in restaurants. In Warwickshire, in Coventry's not so good. Like it's just not very affluent, so there's not many nice restaurants. Leamington's nice, Warwickshire's nice, Rugby's nice. So that's where I targeted. I made sure that wherever people were, I was. And then I always made sure that I left, that I was as good as I could be. I was be so good they don't forget you, or whatever it is. That was my mission. So every time I went to an event, I treated it like a wedding fair. I was like, Owen, you can have the wedding fairs, and he's done very well, but I'm going to be right behind you. And if I have to grassroot it and fight and find a way, I will. That's one thing. Maybe it's the thing I said I wasn't going to talk about, but maybe it is being dyslexic and dyspraxic. You have to find a different way around stuff. So I was like, well, I want to get here. I'll just go the long way, but I'll do it, and I'll never stop fighting. And if it's raining, I'll go out. If it's cold, I'll go out. And that's what I did. I had such a chip on my shoulder, Craig, to prove people wrong. So I was there.
Well, you know, there is no substitute for hard work. And the thing is, a lot of magicians, and you've heard me speak about this at events, they will sit at home waiting for the phone to ring. And then when the phone doesn't ring, they will blame everything else other than themselves. Oh, the phone's not ringing because of this. The phone's not ringing because of that. And, you know, you see it all of the time. And up until a few years ago, it wasn't too much of an issue because marketing was very, very easy. You put an advert in the yellow pages and you just sit back and wait for the phone to call. But these days, that ain't the case anymore. You have to have a marketing strategy, whether that be the route I go down, which is digital and SEO and content-based strategy, or you do what Owen does, which is wedding fairs, or you do what you do, which is network and just make sure that everybody knows who you are. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but you need to make sure that you've got some sort of strategy other than sitting around in your bedroom waiting for the phone to ring.
Oh, absolutely. And when I'd say that I was broke, right? I had to borrow money from a friend to do a Gary Jones and Chris Congreve course on being a wedding magician, which was the best money I ever borrowed. But the reason I say that as well is when I went there, I can't remember, there was probably 15, maybe 20 other magicians in the room.
Owen spoke about this. So I think he was one of them.
Yeah, Owen was definitely there. And the reason I know Owen was there, it was only Owen and I that bothered before, and Jack. There was 3 of us that performed at the end because everyone else was too nervous. Now I was, or didn't want to. Now I was too nervous, but I performed, and it was terrible. I did card to orange. The card wasn't the same card in the orange. Like, everything that went wrong could go wrong, and I learned so much from that one course. So there's the other thing as well. Like, the reason I say that is just to say, if you're going to take an opportunity, make the most of it. If you're looking at becoming or just doing more with your magic, if I can help with any advice, it's make the most of every opportunity. So I got resonances very early on. I am a massive ice hockey fan. Coventry Blaze is my local club. I realized that I was going there every week and buying a ticket. I said to the directors, you've got these VIP boxes, there's period breaks. Could I go up and do some magic? I can brand it to the Blaze. I can get Blaze stickers for playing cards. And they were like, that'd be amazing. How much would you charge? And I was like, oh, I was going to do it for free, but they've mentioned it. And then luckily, a friend who interjected herself at this point, she said, actually, well, she was a marketing manager there, and that's how I met her from the different, well, I had a job and we sponsored the Blaze. She said, actually, we're looking for someone to be a corporate host. Okay, that sounds good, right? So you're going to meet the VIP fans, the VIP guests. Could you take them to the box, talk to them about how ice hockey works? Because if you don't know how ice hockey works, it takes a while to get your head around. And then maybe pop up and do some magic. I was like, brilliant. That's amazing. I'll do that. And they offered me 40 quid. And this was 6 years ago. And I'll tell you now, I still do it for 40 quid. Like,
but you love ice hockey. You'd be there anyway.
So here's the thing, right? You'd be there anyway. You're meeting VIP guests. Now, okay, VIP in British ice hockey is not the same as the VIP clients that I meet when I do football and rugby, but they're local business owners that have got a passion for something. So that's good. So you're meeting people that are local business owners. You're there every single week, apart from when I've got other gigs, I'm not there as often. But at the time, I was there every single week. So I'm performing every single week. I'm performing to people that I see regularly. So I've constantly got to make up new stuff. It was win-win. it was just like a dream come true. I was almost, I was on the team pictures, I was in the brochure, I was on the website. So, okay, my brand looks good. They don't need to know at the time that I was brand new. So I'm still going. I'm working every weekend to a new audience, but a warm audience that are expecting me to be there. There's a big difference between turning up and interrupting someone's evening to show them some magic to turning up to where people are expecting you to be and they're already looking forward to it. That's a big thing. It's a big difference to learn, and you can play to the strengths of both. But it's just that, like, most magicians would laugh at that 40 quid. Like, well, they would say on Facebook there's a laugh on that. But you make the best of any situation. Do you remember Colin Skinner had managed to secure a venue that was offering the stage space to magicians, and he said, yeah, I can get magicians on stage. It's a cabaret night to a student audience. It's 50 quid. And he put it on GigShare, and magicians were just diving in saying that's a ridiculous fee. No one should ever work for 50 quid. I was like, so it's the stage. I get to learn about lighting. I get to learn how to use a mic. It's a student drunk audience, so they're probably going to be really warm anyway. And I get paid £50 for learning the experience. You couldn't get me on there quicker. You came in to do it with me. Just, I don't know why. You just needed something to do. But
people ask me that. I just love performing. You know what I'm like? I just like, to me, if I see an opportunity to do a gig, you know how many gigs we do as a company. I just go and do it. I don't care.
It's that I learned. So I did that. I was so nervous. That was one of the first cabaret shows that I've done, which is strange now, looking at what I do now. But that was one of the first ones that I'd done. I was so nervous. I hadn't been nervous for years because my closest.
I remember that night. You were amazing, because I'd never seen you work cabaret before, and I was like sitting there at the back of the room, because you went on first and I was on the second half, and I was sitting there thinking, I got to follow this.
I was opening for Craig Petty. I mean, come on, but I was so nervous. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was the first staged cabaret that I'd done. I'd done stand-up shows, parlor, and I knew I could smash that. But you overthink stuff, and you don't think in your head, well, stage is just like parlor, but a bit bigger. So I was so nervous. Lee Thompson said, oh, I'm going to come down and see it. I'm going to video it. And Lee will give you the feedback that you need to hear, not the stuff you want to hear. And I was nervous that he was in the room. Kev G had come down, but the minute the curtain went up and I was on, and it was a good show. I did a good show, and by good I mean that no tricks went wrong. The audience enjoyed it, and I made the people that joined me on stage look good. That is the bare minimum that we should be looking for as performers. It was a good show. You did a great show after, but we smashed it together, which was nice. But more to the point, that's a priceless opportunity. Who else gets to go and practice on a stage in a nice, safe environment? No one. But magicians were slagging it off because it was 50 quid. Nah, you need to, if you want to do this and you want to do it well, you need to take these opportunities. And I learned on a £50 gig. That was the first one that I did. I then went to Edinburgh, so work out that cost, to work for Elliot Bibby to headline, which was very nice of him, to headline his magic show that he does in Edinburgh, Magic Festival. Amazing gig, because I was really involved in that then, in the timing, in the pacing. He showed me why you have music, where you have it. I just absorbed it. I probably made £75 there. But then I had so much love for being on stage that I was able to write my own show. And when you write your own show and you've got your own theatre that you can do it in, it becomes your baby. You can really get your character in. And I never would have had the experience to do that, to have the success that that's had, without taking the 50 quid and the £75 5-hour train journey thing. So again, I don't know what advice I can really get across here, but it has to be just take every opportunity and treat every gig like it's a £1,000 2-hour gig in London. Like, treat every gig like it is that level, because
I
that's how it
find
will
it
come across.
funny that a lot of magicians try to skip the steps. And what I mean by that is there's Facebook groups on Facebook in the UK. I'm saying this because 70% of the viewers for this are American. So in the UK, there's Facebook groups where you can share gigs with each other. And a lot of the time, there's a gig that will come up and it's like 2 hours close-up magic and a 20-minute cabaret show. It's £1,000. Only apply for this if you've done gigs at this level. And you'll see magicians applying for that gig. Like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And then the next day, a gig will come up going, it's £100 for 2 hours close-up magic. And the same person will apply for it. And it's kind of like, make your mind, you can't skip the steps. If you are going out at a certain level, that's fine, but you need to get good at that level and then move up to the next level, then the next level, and then the next level. You can't skip the steps. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I will never be magic famous. I don't want to be magic famous. I've seen what being magic famous does to people, but I will always aim to be respected. So I want if my name comes up in conversation, it's never going to be because of a fantastic lecture that I've done or my newest, greatest release. If my name comes up in conversation, I always want it to be a positive, because I want it to be that someone's worked with me or has taken advice from me. And that's what I wanted to achieve. And I wanted to do that at every single step. And I have tried hard to do that. And I've been very fortunate that idols to rivals things, the people that I started getting into magic, watching their DVDs and thinking, oh, I'd love to be like them. Next thing I know, I'm on a gig with them. And you're like, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. And then people do remind you, like Lee Thompson's good at reminding you, you're very good at reminding me, like you've learned it. Like imposter syndrome is huge. And when I walked into a gig and it was my gig actually, and I had to find multi people to do it with me. And I had Steve Della and Lee Thompson. Steve Della is phenomenal. I think he's like he won the most awards you can ever win. Like most winningest magician, I don't know. And then Lee Thompson has done everything from street magic to film magic. And I had imposter syndrome then, but I realized that I'd earned, not only had I earned my right to be at that gig, I'd earned their respect that they would come and work for me. We did one not so long ago, so I don't work with you anymore, Craig. We're both too busy. However, I said to you, if you ever need me, I will be there for you, and I will always try and back you if I can. So I get a phone call from Craig, which is novel because normally it's a message. And he's like, I've got, and you sounded nervous, and you never sound nervous. I was like, oh, so you need something. You're like, I've got a gig. It's a really good gig. It's a big gig. You'll love it. It's working with me. Oh, and working with Steve Della. You like him, and Cypedal. You like him. I was like, Craig, what is it? He said, it's a voodoo gig. I was like, brilliant. Yes, I'll be there. That's. If people won't know that I do a lot of voodoo and darker shows. Like, I'm not going to pretend anyone knows that. I said, hang on a minute. What voodoo stuff do you and Steve Della do? And you're like, well, yeah, we're hoping that you could probably do the voodoo and we'll just do the rest. I was like, okay, okay. So I was like, here it is. Let me grab my little box and I'll go and do what the booker wants, and you guys go and do the rest. So it's nice to be on the tip of people's tongues when they need something specialist. So
well, let me ask you a question. You said that you never want to be magic famous, and I know that's true. However, was that always the case? Because a few years ago, you were doing review shows and releasing products to the magic community, and you don't go down that route unless you want to kind of be more involved and be magic famous. Because you saw what doing a review show led to me being like. I just
yeah, I did. Yeah, do you know what? That review show I got, that was my own mouth that got me into that. So the review show had started and I was watching it and I was like, oh, you're boring. Like, with all the love in the world, the Mark that was doing them, I was like, I'm bored. And me being me decided, well, I'm going to go and tell him. Because again, the same with Mark Lavelle, you go and meet people. So I knew Mark Traversoni from the Magic Club anyway. And I went and spoke to him, said, I've been watching your review show, Mark, and I don't mean to be rude, but you're boring. Like you don't seem to care about the products. And I mean, we know why. When you're doing a review show, you're trying to remember everything you need to say, you're trying to remember the camera, and he was very new to it at the time, but I decided to call him on it. And I said something stupid like, you need someone like me to come and like do the color commentary, to use a wrestling term. And I didn't think anything of it, but apparently Mark's wife had overheard that, and she was like, actually, you know what, you're right, you do need someone like him. So I got the offer to go in, and if someone offers you to do something cool, then yeah, you're going to do it. I didn't, being Magic famous was never a goal, but doing a review show was cool. So yeah, then I released there's one project that's mine, that's got my name on it, and I've actually been involved in quite a few projects. I'm actually involved in quite a few projects now. I just want to do that thing where the magicians do, where they pretend they can't talk about stuff. But I did. So again, the old point of this is people don't know me. So I am known in some circles for doing very dark, macabre, tarot reading, palm reading, cold reading, voodoo dolls, dangerous effects. So I did release something to the market. It was a close-up trick that involved Lego men, but it was good, right, Craig?
It's a great trick. It's an awesome trick. It's a really good trick.
It was a trick that came out of a necessity. So I was doing weddings and stuff, and there's kids there, and for God's sake, if you're doing weddings, get the kids involved. You will be a star. If you can do cards across, if you do cards across, but you have the kid running around the table, you've gone from being a magician to a legend, because the kid's excited. The parents think that you're amazing because you've made their kid into a rock star. And I was like, I need more stuff like this, but I don't want to break character. I don't want to have fluffy bunnies, or I don't want to have light up thumbs. I need something that still suits me, that's still cool. And I was thinking this over, and then one day at a wedding, a kid went, can you do anything with my Lego? And I was like, yes. So I did. I think we had the Lego figure found the sign card, or the card wasn't the sign card until the Lego figure touched it, and then it became the sign card. But that went in my mind. I was like, Lego's good, because often people have Lego sets for kids at weddings in the little bags. Everybody's played with Lego. Adults have a lovely link with Lego. Like nearly everyone played with Lego as a child. It takes you back. Lego's still relevant. So I was like, right, I'm going to do a trick with Lego. And then when you spoke with D. Christopher on this show, he talked about making a trick. So I created the prototypes for the Figment. I got like 6 made. I sent you one. I sent Gary Jones one, Chris Congreves one, Kev G one. And I said, see what you think. And it was Chris Congreves that phoned me and said, I've worked this routine. It's brilliant. The reactions killed. I think you've got a great trick there. So I thought, brilliant. I'll just get 100 of these made and sell them to magicians. Stephen Leithwaite, I told him about it, and he said, stop. He said, if you think you've got a good trick now, you'll have a good trick in a year's time. What you want to do when you create is you want to create stuff that looks good and keeps you full of pride when it's on your shelf 5 years down the line. So don't do anything now. Play with it, work with it, keep it till you own every inch of it, and then release it. And that was the best advice I'd ever got, because the whole reason that Figment's so magical is it happens twice, if that makes sense. The reveal happens twice. The card changes, which it goes from, okay, that's impossible but quite clever, to no, that is impossible. And that came about after playing with it for a long time. So the best advice I ever got, which was from Stephen Leithwaite, which was echoed by D. Christopher, and he talked about when they make products for release. So yeah, I put that out. I didn't want to be Magic famous when I put that out, but I was proud to have something out because I was proud of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is.
I knew that the product was good, and I knew that it was a worker, which is something that you learn when demoing a product and working in a magic shop. You realize that 90% of magicians, if not more, are hobbyists, and I would say 60% have never performed outside of their friends and family. So you've got a trick like Figment that is not in any way a magician faller, and it was never designed to even be slightly falling. You can see the moves that you do that you need on the trailer, because I knew, or we knew, that that sold it. Like, to a worker, it's so simple. So you're demoing it, and 90% of the people you demo it to go, oh yeah, I can see how that's done. And you're like, okay. But some of the magicians that did weddings, that did kids' party, their eyes would light up and they go, this is brilliant, thank you very much. And I still get messages now from people that are still working it and sending me videos or thoughts. So yeah, that went out. I'm still proud of that. I'm hoping that my next release will be slightly more in tune with my style now, but I'm not really planning on anything. I don't want to keep releasing stuff, because if you've seen, Craig, the people that pride themselves on constant releases, eventually the standards drop. Eventually.
Because what happens, and I can tell you this from experience, what happens is, because I've released a lot of products, and I think some of the best,
some of them are even your own.
One or two. The best stuff is the stuff that I released at the beginning, flipped out, the stuff with the flipper coin, Keymaster, Chop, all of that stuff. You put pressure on yourself to continually find that next thing, and the quality goes down and down and down. I've took a 6-year break from Magic, and I've carried on creating. And if I decided to ever release something else, I'm in a situation where I've got so much amazing material, but that's because I took such a step back from the Magic community. If that kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. I've got stuff in mind. I've got stuff that I'm very proud of. I have a routine. So in lockdown, I wrote a new show, which is difficult to write a show when you can't practice it on anybody. And I also challenged myself to write a show that was a non-Magic show, basically, which is another challenge to do in lockdown. But one of the routines that I came up with, I was extremely proud of. And then I got one show between the first lockdown and the second one. I had 2 dates, and I've got 2 shows. So I did my original show and then my new one. And it's sold out, but it's easy to sell out when you've only got a very small audience that have to sit 2 meters apart. But one of the routines that I put into that show works so much better than I thought. I was so proud of it. I've been chatting to D, Christopher. I can tell you this now because it's been on the show. He was saying about bringing back the 1914. I was so excited. I was like, D, let me tell you about this routine. He was like, brilliant. Tell me about the routine. I tell him about the routine, and he just confirmed everything all the rules that I'd broken. It wasn't ready for a release. It was good in my show, but it's only good in my show because it's written for my show. You couldn't take it to the masses. He was like, you know what? If it did this, this, and this, it'd be a product we could release. And then he went, why do you want to release this? This is obviously something that you've created, and why do you want to take? And I was like, why do I want to release it? That is a trap that you fall into as a magician. You're like, this is good. Well, maybe I'll sell it. No, like, keep some stuff back. I don't know, just it's a horrible track thing that seems to be the path that magicians take, and I think there's a lot to be said for keeping stuff back. The only thing that would really like to do would be an Alakazam academy one day. That is a small goal to have one day.
Well, Peter and the team over at Alakazam are absolutely amazing.
Can we talk about Alakazam, because I have not bought Magic for a long time. This is
the channel that brought Ryland's love of Alakazam to the airways. Like, watching this YouTube channel.
I have to admit that I am an Alakazam fan as well. So I had not bought Magic for a long time. I didn't need any Magic. Working in a Magic shop, you become very non-fussed by new releases, because basically there's nothing new, and you can not much takes you by surprise. And I've got my own set, and I've now got to the point where I can make my own routines, which I love doing. And then lockdown hit, and everything had to change, and we had to get socially distanced, and we had to get socially distanced quick. So I was like, oh, let me just have a quick look. Now, Peter Nardi is just one of these people that he's just got the charisma of a gangster. And I think because I grew up in Coventry, which is not particularly nice, I'm drawn to that sort of thing. So when Pete speaks, I listen. So Alakazam is one of the only emails that I get in that I actually read. And I got drawn in when I was looking for socially distanced material to perform on Zoom or behind in a box, which is where I am now. And things like Symbol and Swindle. And I was like, okay, Alakazam's got some good stuff. And then they start doing their live product launches where you can hang out, and it's a bit like being at a magic club, but it doesn't smell as bad, and you've got your own drinks rather than paying for multi-pack Coke cans for £1 each that you're not allowed to resell. I was like, okay, they've got a vibe here. And then they brought out the collector, which I put into, my Halloween set, Craig. It's not a product. There's no products in there. It's stuff that I've created. The collector went straight in. I was like, okay. Like, I always knew that Alakazam were good, but I'd never spent much time really looking. So all their new releases are coming out, and they're amazing. Then you start thinking, well, they can't just have got good. So I started looking at their back catalogue, and I just think their pricing, their customer service. I am an Alakazam fan, and that is why I've set myself the goal of one day doing an Alakazam academy.
Well, I think the thing is that Peter cares. It's his business, it's his reputation on the line, and he cares. And one thing, and I know from speaking to Peter, one thing that he's very proud of doing is when somebody comes to him with a trick to sell, it's normally the end product that Alakazam put out isn't the product that initially came to them. Peter will sit down and workshop it and then see if they can adapt it and see if they can change it and see if they can improve it, which they did with the collector. As good as Nicholas Mavresis is, and he is very good, Peter improved that.
Yeah, apparently they had it for like a year to work on it, which is what we just said with Figment. It's just nice to see. I mean, there must be some Magic's companies that don't do that and put stuff out straight away and see what happens, get the money and not think about it. So,
down.
But let's not get you started on a rant, because I said I would only do this if there was any chance I could get some information across that may help someone else. Otherwise, we could have done this in the pub and or in your man cave. But I don't know. I don't feel like I've been able to help anybody for a while.
No.
So.
Yeah, well, the advice that you've put forth so far is amazing. It really is. And I think just your story and how you've gone from where you were to where you are now is inspirational, Tom. It really is.
Well, we could nutshell it, mate. We could skip all this and put it in a 2-minute video. So if you're watching this and you are new to Magic and you're worried that you've left it too late, or you're not physically gifted enough, if you've got any sort of lack of coordination, if you struggle to read, if you struggle to concentrate, fuck it. Doesn't matter. You can do it. Just find your own way to do it. Don't take bad advice. Never take advice from people that aren't out there doing it. Ignore Facebook magicians. Look for social proof. If someone's telling you how to go and market your business, check out how they're doing. If you want to see someone that's being successful, check out Owen Strickland or Elliot Bibby. They are absolute workers. They're the intercontinental champions. We often laugh between the three of us, like we're the ones that no one knows who we are. We are working, like people that think magicians only work weekends or only work Saturdays. When lockdown hit and we lost all our bookings, I'm not a bragger, I'm really not, but I honestly genuinely work 4 or 5 days a week and often multi-gigs on those days. Like I lost everything in lockdown, but you stay focused. You don't, the same drive that got me here is going to get me through this. So be so good that they can't ignore you. Act like a rock star. They'll treat you like a rock star. Treat every gig like it is a £1,000 an hour gig, and be yourself. That's it. That's all you need to do. Don't take corners and don't get an ego. There you go, mate. We could have done that this morning.
So here's one last question for you before we wrap all this up. What's next? What you got planned next? Because you know you how old are you now, Tom?
37 in January the 12th, mate. 37 in January the 12th.
So you've been doing this for almost a decade.
Jesus, 7 years. 7 years. Come on.
What's your plans next? What have you got? I know you say you've wrote another show, but long term, what are you wanting to achieve?
Honestly, I have already been more successful than I ever thought I ever would be. So every day just felt like a bit of a blessing. So really, I'm loving having a stage to do cabaret shows on. So I wrote one last year, I wrote one this year, but I feel like we didn't get much out of this year. So I think what I'll do is continue to work in Confessions, which is my show that I wrote this year. I'll give that a year's run in Stratford-upon-Avon, probably once a month. You can come and see it if you can get there. And then I think I want to do a tour. I want to actually take my show. It's very easy to do a show in a city or a part of the world that you're known. I know that I could probably fill out and sell my tickets to my show from doing a wedding and then being like, oh, guys, it was lovely to meet you today. By the way, next Thursday night, I'm in Stratford-on-Avon. It's just my story, my show. It's £15 a ticket. Do you want to come? I could do that. But to go on tour and sell tickets where people don't know you, that's a challenge. And maybe I can take Elliot, Bibby, and I talk about it a lot. Maybe you, but you're a hard man to go on tour with because you don't drive and you sleep a lot and you snore a lot in the car. But that'd definitely be something that I would like to do. I'm going to try and get some letters after my name. That's the goal for next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get some letters after my name. You're probably the wrong person to speak to about that. They don't like you, but I'm going to...
Hey, we're on speaking terms now. I was speaking to them just the other day.
I am. I'm going to go for it. I am going to go for it. I think it's one thing that I really should have. I think just to prove, just to be on that level. Like I can work as hard as I want, but that's the one thing I can do for myself. I'd really like to say that I can get behind D Christopher because I'm so excited for his new relaunch. But he's got so many amazing performers and stuff that's coming out. I've got nothing really to offer that he can't get elsewhere. So I'm going to be a fan for a bit of that. I think I'm going to sign up to their mailing list, get their things. But really, as sad as it sounds, I'm going to start rebuilding because we've lost a lot with the lockdown.
We have, but what does it make possible, as Brad Burton would say? What does this make possible? And what it makes possible is, there is less competition. It's sad. There's a lot of magicians that have dropped out of magic that aren't going to come back for one reason or another. Maybe they've got themselves a job and they don't want to lose the stability of a full-time wage. Maybe they've just decided that, they like having a weekend and they don't like running around the country all weekend, every weekend. But there is going to be a lot less magicians. And trust me, when everything's back to normal, and it will be at some point in 2021, when everything's back to normal, people are going to want live entertainment more than ever before.
Oh, hell yeah.
So building won't be hard for somebody with fire, passion, drive, determination, enthusiasm, motivation, and a willingness to succeed, which is everything that you embody.
Well, I appreciate that. It's beautiful to hear. But again, maybe it won't be hard, but it still needs to be done. And I think, like you said, don't skip a step. So I want to go back and just fill up the bank a little bit, like I didn't work for a year. So like with the savings have gone and stuff. So just get back to what I was doing. I tell you one thing that everyone's going to have a shock, because it shocked me, getting your reps in. Like I am exhausted. What did I do the other day? 4 hours? And I was exhausted. Like, do you remember we used to do like 2 weddings in a day? You do like wedding breakfast, mix and mingle, wedding breakfast, drive somewhere and do wedding evening gig and then drive home. Nothing. I tell you, mate, it's gonna shock people.
Well, know that you rang me the other day and I was like, I'm in an illusion show with Kat. Haven't done many illusion shows over the last year. And I was with Kat, and it was one of those ones where we had to be in London by 9 o'clock. So we left the house at 4:30 and we had 3 illusion shows to do. Man, I was almost coughing up blood at the end of those 3 shows. I was dead. I was like, oh my God. I genuinely thought at one point I was having a heart attack. Yeah. And I was like, oh my, luckily I had Kat. So, there's that. But
yeah, Kat will look after you. Kat will look after you. But yeah, that's it, man. I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing, try and get my life back. stay positive, write more shows, learn more stuff. From a learning point of view, I really enjoyed writing a show that was no magic, so I'm going to go much deeper into my cold reading and perception skills and hypnosis.
Awesome.
That's so, yeah, just going to try and be more crazy than I am.
Now, before we wrap this all up, and we are going to wrap it up now, but one thing that you have said over and over again in this whole interview is the importance of having a mentor, the importance of finding people that can support you. You've talked about D. Christopher, you've talked about Elliot, you've talked about all these guys. I know there's going to be people that are going to be watching this interview that have resonated with what you've said. They are in the same situation as you were a few years ago. Maybe they're struggling or whatever it may be, especially with COVID. Would they be okay to approach you? And if so, how would they do that?
Oh, honestly, I love it when that happens. It still shocks me now. People contact me about a few things already, Lego men being one. I do a lot of risky magic, a lot of, I don't like using the geek phrase, but a lot of razor blade stuff, needle stuff, smash and stab stuff. People always, like at least honestly, once a week and then once a minute at Halloween, contact me about that. So if you've any questions about that, get in contact. I've got some really good little, just ways to sell it. Or drop me a message on Instagram is the best way to do it. Because
what's your Instagram handle down there? What's your website? I'll put
you mean you don't know it? It's at Jester_Styles. I mean, come on. I thought you knew that. I
know it, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, you can get your Jester Styles t-shirt from there as well. The reason I like Instagram is I keep everything off Facebook. I don't put even any of my work stuff on my Facebook account. That's mine. My Facebook business page is business, but Instagram is the best place to contact me. And here's another thing about the brand, just to go back about making a brand and being a brand. If you've got a branded Instagram, this is just my opinion, and I'm going to speak about it with passion, but if you've got a branded Instagram, keep it branded. So I know people that have got their Instagram where they're talking about gigs that they've done, but then they're also tagging in producers of tricks that they've bought. Like, oh, I can't wait to, well, you've just told your audience where, like, you can't go and get a standing ovation for turning water into wine on a Saturday and on Sunday be like, oh, look at this great trick that I bought from Alakazam. Like, you need to have a cutoff point. And also, don't put like back in the gym or here's my dinner. Like, create hype. So use your Instagram as the way of getting your character across. And if you go to the gym a lot, then one of the reasons you may get booked is because people like the fact that you fill a suit well. So put a bit in, but don't put it too personal. Just keep it about your brand. I did it when I first started. I did it too much. I was just trying to put across the character that I wanted to be. And now I use it just as social proof. So I have wedding photos. I have any gigs that I've done. It's great to network with photographers, but you'll never see me like put a photo up of my I don't know, new trick that I've bought or my car or going out. Like, just keep in mind the story you're trying to tell with all your social media, I think is what I'm trying to say in a weird way.
No, it's true. So, and it's a mistake. You know how passionate I am about marketing. It's a mistake I made recently because when I set this YouTube channel up, originally it was set up under slightly unusual. And I realized very quickly, this needs a complete rebrand because this is just not appropriate for the YouTube channel that my clients are seeing, which is why everything changed over to Magic TV. And it's why we changed everything and rebranded everything for that very reason. Yeah,
it's like when magic shops or card companies will be like and share this status in your story on Instagram and try and win £200 worth of magic. I'm like, no, I don't. I'd rather not have £200 worth of magic and keep some sort of mystery of how I do what I do. So it's just something that I'm passionate about. Most people will just laugh it off, but I like to think that at least for a split second, the character that people are seeing me become has some sort of magical powers or mystery powers. Even if they just think it for a split second and don't go, oh, Infinity Wine, £85 from Alakazam. So,
yeah, I completely agree with you. And Tom, it has been absolutely exceptional. I know how busy you are. I want to say thank you so much for finding the time to come on the channel. Genuinely, I know that you get imposter syndrome, but genuinely, you're an amazing guy. And I think that a lot of people that are going to be watching this interview are going to be inspired by hearing you speak. Thank you so much.
I don't think that they will. And I think that when you edit this out and take the junk out, it'll be about 13 minutes long of me telling people not to put photos of themselves, of their gym workouts on Instagram. But this is it. This is as human as we get. This is you and I chatting. I have been extremely lucky in my journey, and I worked extremely hard to be that lucky. So you don't have to be magic famous. You don't have to be well known to make a very good life for yourself doing something that you enjoy.
And I'll tell you something, I disagree with the whole luck thing. I think you make your own luck. I think if you were sitting in your living room all day waiting for the phone to ring, then all of this stuff that happened to you because you were lucky wouldn't have happened. All the stuff that happened through luck happened because you were out there busting your ass, telling everyone about Jester Styles, number 13, and building a brand. That's why that happened. It was lucky, but only because of the work that you put in.
Unfortunately, Craig Petty, because my brand is built around luck, and I have a show called Origins, which is all about luck, I have to disagree with you there and say that luck is vital. But I do know the point that you're making. Yeah, like you make your own luck, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. But I think the advice, the 2 minutes maybe of solid advice that I did give of make the best of every opportunity, and that's it. That's the secret, isn't it? Just go out there and be yourself and have fun. So who knows? Who thought that I'd be here chatting to you about this? I still used to drive home. I used to like they've all stopped, but I would drive home thinking this is my life, and this took a long 5 years. I would say until I was convinced myself that I was doing this. I drive home from a wedding and being like, oh, that went well. Oh, maybe I will be able to do this as a job. And I'm like, hang on, I haven't made any money from anything but magic for 5 years. So it's still a dream.
It's yeah, you're great. You really are. You're awesome.
Well, this all started off with most of this is your creation. I just ran. You described me once as being a mixture between how did you word it? If Lee Smith met D. Christopher, you'd get Jester Styles. But another thing that's just reminded me, when we met up once,
if Lee Smith and G. Christopher banged, the resulting love child would be Jester Styles.
That was how you word it. Yeah, that's a Craig Petty sentence right there. The other thing that I will say is something that I've just reminded myself of is when we were filming a video, a show reel or something for Slightly Unusual that I was going to be on. You pointed out, you laughed and said that I'd arrive like this and we'd have a laugh and I'd just be lounging around on the seat waiting to go. And then I'd go and get changed and get my suit on, and then I'd walk out and you'd be like, Tom walks in, Jester Styles walks out. And there's a physical difference between me and Jester Styles. And I don't mean I'm like some over-the-top pantomime character, although that may work for most people, it doesn't work for me. But there is a physical difference in the way that I act and I stand and I look and I interact, and who Jester Styles is. And my partner came with me to do a wedding fair once. It was a big 2-day alternative wedding fair where you make your stand up. It was wicked. Like, find your niche and you'll find something like that. And she'd never really seen me perform I'd shown her magic, but she'd never really seen me as Jester Styles before. And she said it's a physical difference. And I think that comes when you are really comfortable with who you are and who you're portraying, then it becomes second nature. And I think that's when you nail it. I think that's when you can be like, I've found, like, no one else can do Jester Styles as well as I can do Jester Styles. You can be a better magician, you can be funnier, you can be better looking, you can be quicker with coins, you can be more smoother with cards. But you can't do what I can do the same way that I cannot do what Craig Petty does when he goes on stage as the illusionist. The illusionist Craig Petty, the arrogant, quick-witted, aggressive Craig that you become on stage, no one else can do, because you do all that without becoming threatening. Like, you play the heel, and the audience wants your magic to go wrong. And not that I've seen your show a lot of times, but the audience want your magic to go wrong, and your person on stage with you, that they want them to do well. But you do it without people actually hating you. And I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do that. I've either got to be a dick or be nice. D. Christopher, when he does, if you've seen his penguin lecture, when he comes out and he's sipping his whiskey and making like little cut-off jokes, no one else can do that. So once you find your own thing that suits you, find your character, then you never have to worry about not being as good as the next person, because you're different to the next person. I will work next to anybody. You put me in, especially close up, idols to rivals, but I've worked with some of the people that I used to, well, I still do admire, but I've worked next to them, the table next to them, and I've not even thought for a second that I can't compete with what they're doing, because I know that what I'm doing is the best that I can offer. And once you get that, that takes a lot of the imposter syndrome away, because actually, your stuff, it's yours, you've made it your own, you can tell your own story and people love it. So just, I don't know where I was going with that, but
you go around finding your character.
Well, this is going to add another 40 minutes. You're going to have to edit the hell out of this. I started off thinking that I was going to be a lot different than I was. So when I got into magic, like I said, I was 28 and I was already trying to be something that I wasn't. I was already trying to have a real job and a real career. So when I got into magic and found actually I can play with this, I can get my persona across, I started off really dark and really serious. And I guess I wanted to be the next, I don't know, D. Christopher. I was that sort of stuff, because that was a natural interest to me. And tarot has always been a natural interest to me. But then as I started to perform that way, I realized, actually, I'm a nice guy. I like having a laugh. And it kind of balanced out a little bit more. And then I was like, okay, I really enjoy the street magic side of it and the dark magic side of it. But then I also enjoy borrowing people's ring and make them disappear. So I sat down and I was like, okay, so we've got Jester Styles. And this may sound really daft to 90% of the people who are watching this. And some people will physically laugh at their screen now. And if you laugh at your screen now, that's great, but this message is not for you and it'll do you no good. But I sat down and worked out, who is Jester Styles? Where does his power come from? How does he do what he does? And some of you will be laughing and thinking, that's the most geeky thing I've ever heard. And some professional magicians, if they're watching this, will be like, what a twat. Just buy a trick that's works well in the real world and perform it. Like, Rubik's Cube magic's popular, why don't you do no, I worked out what suited me and where I had it. I stopped calling myself a magician. I started calling myself a magical entertainer and mystery artist. I love the phrase mystery artist. Unfortunately, it's used by a lot of people now. Dee's got it tattooed on his hand, so I don't really try and use it that much, because he's got the tattoo. So he's gone that next level. I was like, I worked out what I could do as Jester Styles, what Jester Styles could do. You will never see me with a Rubik's Cube, because the minute I walk out on the Rubik's Cube, you're not going to believe it. Like, even if I physically learned to solve one and did it for you, you'd be like, that's probably a trick, because I either dress like this or I'm in Jester Styles mode, and neither of those patterns suit a Rubik's Cube material. Or any extremely like number squares. You'll never see me do a number square. I know that a number square done well is incredible. It's not a Jester style trick. So I just sat down, Craig, and worked out exactly the story I wanted to tell and how I was going to tell it. And I like to think that it goes well. It now gets to the point where people message me. Even my partner messages me and says, I've seen this. It would really suit you. And if someone knows what suits you, then that means actually what they know is the story you're trying to tell. Yeah. And I think that's huge. So
it's very interesting that I did an interview on this channel as well with Tom Crosby, who is the polar opposite of Jester Styles. The performing nerd and Jester Styles are probably opposite ends of the spectrum. But the advice that he gave is almost identical to your advice, except he was saying, I would never do this trick, this trick, this trick. You'd see me with a Rubik's Cube. But the concept of he's very selective about his material because he knows his character. And because he knows his character, he knows what his character, he wouldn't see Tom Crosby doing, you know, voodoo stuff and stuff like that. But
No.
it's exactly the same advice, but just in a completely different way, which shows that the advice works no matter.
Well, there may be one very good reason for that, and that is because I am lucky enough to call Tom Crosby a friend, and I don't just mean that we speak on Facebook. If I phone him now, he will answer the phone. I'm knocking things over now. I am lucky enough to call Tom Crosby a friend to the point that, like, if I phone him, he'll answer. Like, we speak often. His show that he did at Blackpool, his geekism show, not geekism, that's Jonty. His show that he did at Blackpool, that he did at Edinburgh Fringe, just inspired me so much that when I wrote my latest show, Confessions, it was based around the advice that he gave me from writing his show, which is probably the advice that I have just given back to you then. But yeah, so the thing is that I realized was when I was writing Confessions, I was like, oh, I really like this trick. Maybe I could squeeze that in. And then the advice that Tom was always like, don't squeeze in a trick just because it's good. Like, you learn, I don't know, let's say Symbol from Alakazam. Beautiful trick. And I was like, oh, I could do something like that. And he was like, don't squeeze something in just because it's good. So tell your original story. And I was like, you're right. You are correct. So Tom Crosby, that is definitely Tom Crosby's advice reimagined in my mind and given back to you. So yes, thank you for credit checking me there. But that goes back to it. Find your tribe, find people that you can work with and you can bounce ideas off. Because I've learned a lot from Tom Crosby, who I'm so glad he did this show. I haven't seen it, so I guess it hasn't gone live yet.
It's not gone live yet. No.
When there's a lot of you do a lot of material and a lot of videos, so I don't watch them all, but some things I do look out for. D. Christopher's I watched instantly. Tom's I watched instantly. Owen's I watched instantly. So you've got some good people coming up. I still don't. When there's me, people are going to be disappointed. I feel like we should give away something to make it up to people.
The amount of people that I'm interviewing for this channel, I've bumped David Regal. David Regal, I've bumped now 4 weeks in a row. Like, and he's my favorite magician. It's just crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I think we should give something away, Craig, to make people watch this. I think you should find one of your many DVDs on a shelf, and we'll give it away to somebody. Give something back. So. But I feel like we should probably stop talking, because every time you give me, we just talk randomly, and I don't think we've actually really achieved anything here. But then
it's an amazing interview, Tom.
I'm not so sure, but please do let me know on Instagram if you've watched the entire interview, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon, Craig.
Absolutely. And
I've actually got to get ready to go to work. I mean, I know that's.
I know you have. I know you have. I'll wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. It's now on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon Music. And I'll be back tomorrow with a review show with Ryland, and then Thursday with the magic stuff. So I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Tom, one more time, thank you very much. You are the man.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to anybody that has listened to this. I'll be shocked if someone's got to the end. Thank you.